Jehovah's Witnesses, the only organization preaching the good news. Do you know of anyone else who preaches about God's kingdom from house to house throughout the world? Jehovah's Witnesses are the only organization doing the preaching work as Jesus instructed. Well, that's what the Watchtower says anyway. According to them, Jesus commanded us to preach from house to house. So next time you're talking to a witness at your door, ask them, where in the Bible did Jesus command us to preach from house to house? Where does the Bible say that door-to-door preaching is a requirement of the true religion? Chances are more likely than not that they are going to respond with one of two verses, either Matthew 24:14 or Matthew 28:19. And while these verses do admonish us to preach and make disciples, you'll notice that they don't actually say anything in reference to door-to-door preaching. So, kindly re-ask your question. Where in the Bible did Jesus command us to preach from house to house? Now, they're probably not going to be able to actually answer the question. But don't worry, the Watchtower did teach them how to respond.
Thank you for raising such an interesting question. To be honest, I don't know the answer, so I'll look into your question and get back to you.
Such a candid, modest approach may well pave the way for further discussions. This will give the witness an excuse to return to your house and talk to you more. They'll do this after they find you an answer. At the end of the month, when the witness turns in his tally sheet that tracks his hours of preaching work, he would mark you down as what's called a return visit. You'd be on your first step to becoming a part of Jehovah's earthly organization. Or we can save them the trouble of returning to our home and show them right now where that phrase, house to house, is located in the New World Translation. There are 3 instances of that phrase, 2 in Acts. We'll go ahead and look at those first. If you don't use the New World Translation, you might not be familiar with the phrase house to house being in the book of Acts. The reason is other Bibles translate the Greek kata oikos as at home, privately, or in every house. Actually, if you look at the footnote in the reference version of the New World Translation, you will see that the Watchtower actually acknowledges the Greek here means according to house. So what are the Greek words for the term house to house? Well, oikia eis oikia. You can actually find this term house to house in Luke 10:7. This is actually the only place you're going to find the term house to house speaking in reference to preaching to non-believers. Jesus is sending out his disciples to preach, and he's giving them very specific instructions. He says to them, do not be going house to house. So why then is the Watchtower telling its members that Jesus commanded them to go house to house? Is it the best way to increase their members? The Watchtower says that Jehovah's Witnesses are well known for their effective house-to-house ministry. So let's take a look. Last year's publishing statistics are located at jw-media.org. There is a link to the right of this video if you would like to confirm these figures. In 2008, Jehovah's Witnesses spent 1,488,000,000 hours preaching, and they baptized 289,000 people. Most of the people were actually brought into the organization by being children or relatives, maybe even a friend of a current member. A very generous estimate would be that roughly 100,000 of the baptisms last year were actually the result of door-to-door preaching. This would mean it takes Jehovah's Witnesses 14,886 hours of preaching to result in a single baptism. The average rank-and-file witness preaches about 10 hours each month. So that would mean it would take 124 years of preaching before they are able to get one person baptized. It really starts to get to be a laughing matter when you realize that the Watchtower says angels are directing their preaching work. Jehovah might want to hire some new angels with the kind of results they are getting. Now, I have no problem with door-to-door preaching. In fact, I think it's great. What it all comes down to is that the Watchtower is teaching that door-to-door preaching is the identifier of the true religion. But we have just learned that this is not a Bible teaching. The Bible does not specify how disciples are to preach. For the Watchtower to say that Jesus commanded us to preach door to door, now this is a lie. They also tell their members that all the organizations besides the Watchtower are part of false religion and will be destroyed at Armageddon. The Watchtower teaches an entirely different message than that of Jesus, and it's certainly not good news.